Egypt and China marked in May the 65th anniversary of the establishment of the Egyptian-Chinese relations. Chinese ambassador to Cairo, Liao Liqiang, said that China is Egypt's largest trade partner, adding that the trade volume between Egypt and China reached $14.5 billion. He noted that trade exchange in the first quarter of 2021 rose by 31% to reach $4.18 billion. He added that the direct investments between Egypt and China in 2020 reached $190 million, noting that total Chinese investments in Egypt reached $1.2 billion. Li Qiang said the Egyptian-Chinese relations on all fields, including the economy and trade, have seen progress. He noted that cooperation in the fields of energy, space, information technology, communication, mining, and petrochemicals also saw a huge progress. During the pandemic, the cooperation projects between the two countries regularly grew, including in the Suez Canal zone, the new administrative capital, and the railway project in the 10th of Ramadan city. There is also cooperation in other new projects, including the establishment of 5 tall residential buildings in the new Alamein city and the electric car project in Egypt. Li Qiang noted that in 2018, Egypt has become among the top 5 tourist destinations in Africa for Chinese tourists. In that year, the number of tourists from China reached 500,000. The ambassador said these bilateral ties between Egypt and China are a model to follow, as they are characterized by cooperation, solidarity, mutual benefit, and common gains. Thanks to China, Egypt received its first batch of the coronavirus vaccine doses in December. The first shipment constituted 50,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine. Egypt then contracted to receive millions of Sinopharm doses as it started its vaccination campaign in January. Egypt also signed an agreement with China's Sinovac to locally produce their vaccine so that it covers local needs and export extra amounts to Africa. As per the agreement, Egypt is planning to produce 40 million vaccine doses in the first year.
Welcome back again. You're still watching us on the Daily Debate, and I'm still joined in with Dr. Nabil Elmawla, Professor of Projects and International Trade. Dr. Nabil, before we went out to the second report, we were discussing further, and maybe I need to take it off from there, the question of the political relations between Egypt and China, and on various issues we've seen that they have common grounds. Now, not that China is very much into the political scene, but at least from the United Nations Security Council perspective, it does have a permanent seat at the United Nations Council. Do you see that the political alignment between two countries can very well accommodate the economic will? Are they two different paths, or are they integrated from your perspective?
Actually, Egypt is very important for China from two perspectives, from political perspective and from economic perspective. Political perspective, because Egypt is almost the strongest Arab country in the region. They have the most important crucial waterway, Suez Canal of Tunnel. They are considered the hub of the African countries. They have the strongest GDP all over Africa. So Egypt is very important for China political-wise, and that would enhance and support the importance of Egypt for China from economic perspective, as a hub for the economic growth, as a gateway for Africa, as a water pathway from to, and China is considered the biggest user for Suez Canal in the worldwide trade.
Let's go back again to the projects that are of Chinese in Egypt, and we talked about the new Suez Canal. We can talk further about the new administrative capital, for instance, and we know that there's a lot of infrastructure that is under the Chinese control. You just mentioned an iconic tower.
That's correct.
Yes. So tell us more about the details of the sizes of these projects.
Okay, let's go through very quickly through the projects which China is in charge for and has started doing that. We got the TIDA. TIDA is industrial zone, was built in Suez Canal Economic Zone for technological development. TIDA built in Ain Sokhna region. It was planned to increase manufacturing and industrial activity in the area itself. China Harbor Excavation Company and contributed to developing Suez region with the company's construction and containers. Terminal Port of Damietta in 2018. The terminal has 2,225 meters long berth, a 17 meter of depth, and 700,000 square meters of container storage, which is considered
huge.
Right. Adding to this is the Sino Hydro, a subsidiary of Beijing-owned Power China, committed to help construct Egypt's largest petrochemical facility, Tahrir Petrochemicals, which is called Tahrir Petrochemicals complex in 2017 and mid-2018. Officials overseeing the facility confirmed that China had made $3.1 billion available for the project's development. You can imagine this is only one project for the petrochemicals. You can imagine how strong would be the future economic relationship between Egypt and China.
So if we give a rough estimate of, if we're talking about, because why I've mentioned that is because all these projects are energy consuming projects and they very much fit the 2030 agenda of the Sustainable Development program in Egypt. So if we will be reaching at this pace by 2030, what is the rough estimate of the Chinese investment in Egypt by this time, from your perspective?
There is no estimate for that, but they have announced from different sources that that would go to almost $47 billion.
Interesting.
Which is considered the major, which will consider China the major partner for investment in Egypt, of course. This is for the estimate.
That's interesting. I wanted to ask you also something about, because a couple of days ago there was statements from the leadership stating that, because you do know that the Chinese products are all over the world, but they're not at the same quality as they are distributed all over the world. However, Egypt came and said, well, okay, we will be receiving Chinese products, but we will need to receive them up to a certain quality and standard. And that's because, of course, the inflation that's going on and the extra taxes and all this. So it is only logical to have up to quality standard in Egypt, meaning that Egypt should no longer be among these countries that would accept any other quality that does not fit the regulations coming from China. How important is this decision, and what would that have to add into the standard of products that are being distributed in the Egyptian market, competing with other countries other than China, and even competing with the Egyptian products that are also have better, higher standards?
Actually, this is that was a very good decision for being taken, and it was delayed for being taken, but it was taken in the era of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. That's very important because of two aspects, actually. Number one is the consumer. The consumer had the right, any consumer in the world had the right
to pay for a good quality product.
Right, and to be safe for the minimum quality, or as per the standards which the government or which authorities has confirmed that.
And we believe that was an issue a couple of months ago. So many companies and chains, without mentioning names, of course, have had their products returned back because they were out of standard. So I believe that maybe they didn't get the message at this stage, so it had to be a political message. That
happens most of the time, and few of the products which is being returned is not only for the standards, it would be also for the labeling itself. If the labeling is not right, that means the product is not mentioned in the proper way as per the Egyptian standards. That also would give the authority of the customs to return the shipment where it came. It doesn't matter if it came from China or anywhere else.
Anywhere else, it should be up to a standard.
Yeah,
Very
this
good
is
decision.
the standard.
I want to ask you a question, Doctor. Maybe you can correct me for that. I'm not very much accommodated to this, but the fact is, when it comes to technology, we do know that China and India, they're very well developed in the technological aspect and the IT and all that. Now, the fact that China is very well oriented in that, let's talk more about in the field of telecommunications and IT, what kind of projects are binding both countries on this level onwards?
Good. As we have mentioned, TIDA is one of the project ones. The second one, Chinese firms have also begun to make inroads in the telecommunications field, though not to degree as in the other sectors, but still at least we have started in this. Last year, Telecom Egypt secured $200 million in financing from Chinese bank in a deal facilitated by Chinese telecom giant Huawei, which has already existed in the Egyptian market.
So just to put this in much more ordinary content, you don't have to necessarily import or bind or merge two telecommunication companies together, but you can use the know-how, the raw materials and the technology by other countries to implement it and generalize it on different institutions and fields here in Egypt to upgrade their IT sector. Do you think that was very obvious? Because when the pandemic hit, we've seen a very outstanding job and cooperation between the Ministry of Education and the Telecommunication Ministry in upgrading the internet speed and so forth. So let's talk about these indirect investments that are not actual projects on the ground, but they are, you know, cooperating or coordinating between China and Egypt in this regard, in the technology field.
It has already started, as I have mentioned, regarding the technology. They have already started with the telecommunication, with the Ministry of Telecommunications. Lots of projects are already here. Huawei itself, and other Chinese companies, I'm not mentioning a specific name, but any technological company which has existed in the Egyptian market, that means they have started not only trading but also manufacturing, and that means for the Egyptian economy that they are transferring know-how on any level. But step by step, you will get to the in-depth knowledge for the highly specified technological projects.
Dr. Nabil, let's talk about the automotive industry, because I'll tell you why we need to talk about that in specific, because we've seen during the past couple of years the Chinese car manufacturing companies are very much pouring into Egypt, and who would have known that people would actually choose Chinese cars? I believe my father told me when the Japanese first started the cars, before that people were very much with the cars from the US and so forth, and the European, France and Germany. So when Japanese cars came out, people saying, I'm not driving a Japanese car, it's so low standard, and look at the Japanese cars now. But the China automotive industry is also very much boosting, at least this part of the world, with their capabilities. I mean, they might not be very, in terms of quality, competitive, of course, with the top notch, but it is a market, and we've seen that very visually now. How important is this kind of cooperation to the Egyptian economy?
It is very important, and on the level of automotive industry, you will find lots of, or many Chinese brands which has already existed in the Egyptian market, and later they will start to manufacture a few of them right here in Egypt. But let me confirm something you've just mentioned, which has been changed. Currently, you may find Chinese cars which has already existed in the market in a very good quality, very good options.
And they're quite expensive, actually.
Quite expensive, and even if it is mid-price or mid-priced, but it's still very high quality comparing to other European or even American.
Not to mention that there's any European or American. I mean, they're all being manufactured outside. There's India, there's the East Europe market, right? There's Turkey as well, so, you know, Morocco for some countries.
When you think about it, where most of European or American cars are being manufactured right here.
Malaysia, yeah.
In Malaysia and China, most of them will come
India
from
now as well.
Good. That means the Chinese people have already had the experience for that. And when you come to the decision of driving a Chinese car, there is already in the market very good Chinese cars, very professional with high quality and
Yes.
mid-price.
Dr. Nabil, let's look at the greater picture. How do you see the Chinese economic power today around the world?
It is
Where would you see it in a couple of years' time?
it is very competitive on the worldwide economic, and it's going to lead. Maybe it's going to lead, as per the forecast and all the economic reports would say, that China economy would be the strongest in 2030.
Why this specific date? Is there a reason?
Very demanding economic, very high growth. They are expanding everywhere. They are opening markets for their products everywhere.
The pandemic didn't seem to stop them either. They managed that very well. Very well.
They managed it very well, and they were the first to be
Free.
To be hit and the first to be free. And while other people and most of the countries are yelling and
Closing down, locking down.
and locking down, they were locking down, but still other places and other locations they managed it
They
to be
managed it
working
very
very
well.
well, and they recovered very. They are recovering very quickly rather than other countries and worldwide
I
countries.
mean, I'm not an economic expert, but it seems to be that the way they administrate the system is very accurate and very rigid, maybe more than the Japanese, who are always known to be that very strict. Do you think that this is one of the success of how they're keeping it going? They're very productive. Their human resources also work very hard. And so what kind of comparison would you see wanting Egypt to sort of implement these kind of role models to be able to be of quick, rapid economic growth?
Actually, as long as our leadership is insisting, as already being right now, for developing the country itself, working on increasing the growth rates for the country, for the production, for the GDP, for whatever we can call, and they are partnering with countries like China, we will be there.
Mm-hmm. And what would you, as a professor of trade and international projects, what would you want to see furthermore happening between Egypt and China in the upcoming period? And let's talk about the deadline of 2030, because that's an Egypt sustainable development plan as well.
Tripling the FDI, the foreign direct investment from China, and because that would mean that there is a higher level of trust, and that would, if we reach it to that point in tripling, which is maybe difficult, but if we've been working on that level as we are already experiencing right now, I think we may reach to double or double and a half. Yeah. If we reach it to that point, that means a higher trust in the Egyptian economy, and lots more investors from worldwide countries will come right here. And really, we are the land of opportunities for the time being.
Absolutely. Dr. Nabil Abdelmawla, Professor of International Projects and Trade, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
On the Daily Debate. It brings us to the end of our episode of the Daily Debate. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more coming up on Al TV International.